The medication cup hit the floor, pills scattered like shrapnel across pristine white tile. But Sarah Morrison's hands weren't shaking from fear, they were shaking from rage. Rage at the surgeon mocking her. Rage at herself for hiding. Rage at the lie she'd been living for 10 months. She was no nurse. She was Major General Sarah Ghost Morrison, the most decorated combat surgeon in U.S. Special Operations history. And tonight, when armed men stormed through those ER doors hunting for blood, everyone would learn the truth. The weakest person in the room was about to become the most dangerous. But first, let me take you back to where it all began. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and stay with me until the end of this story. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this tale travels. Now, let's begin. The pill bottle slipped from Sarah Morrison's fingers at exactly 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night that would change everything. Jesus Christ, Morrison! Dr. Richard Stone's voice cut through the corridor like a scalpel through skin. That's the 4th time this month. Do you have any idea what those medications cost? Sarah dropped to her knees immediately, her dirty blonde hair falling loose from its bun, shoulders hunched forward as she scrambled to retrieve the scattered pills. She kept her head down, kept her breathing shallow, kept playing the part she'd perfected over 10 months of carefully constructed incompetence. "I'm sorry, Dr. Stone. It won't happen again." "That's what you said last time." Stone stepped closer, his expensive Italian shoes stopping inches from her crouched position. 2 other nurses paused to watch. Maria from pediatrics actually smirked. "You know what? Stay down there. Don't get up yet. I want you to think about how you're wasting this hospital's resources while you're on your knees where you apparently belong." Something flickered behind Sarah's gray-blue eyes, lightning behind storm clouds. Her jaw tightened microscopically. The small scars on the backs of her hands, shrapnel marks from Helmand Province, from Mosul, from places she couldn't name, caught the fluorescent light as her fingers stopped shaking and curled into fists. Then the moment passed. Her shoulders curved forward again. Her head dropped lower. The tremor returned to her hands as she carefully placed the pills back into the cup, one by one, with the exaggerated care of someone who'd been beaten down too many times. "Yes, doctor." "Pathetic." Stone shook his head, addressing the watching nurses like she wasn't even human. "This is what happens when hospitals start hiring based on sympathy instead of skill." "Tell me, Morrison, what was it? Some veteran preference program that forced HR's hand? You file papers at some base in Kansas for a few years, and suddenly you think you can work in a real hospital?" The other nurses laughed. Sarah felt each sound like a knife between her ribs, but she'd felt worse, much worse. "I'll dispose of these properly and get new medications, Dr. Stone." "See that you do, and try not to kill anyone tonight with your incompetence. We've got a full ER, and I don't need to waste time cleaning up after you." He turned and walked away, his white coat billowing behind him like he was some kind of medical superhero. The nurses dispersed, whispering and giggling. Sarah remained on her knees for exactly 15 seconds longer than necessary, selling the performance, making them believe she was broken. Inside, she was counting. 10 months, 304 days, 7,296 hours since the helicopter crash in Syria that killed her entire team. Since she'd crawled out of the wreckage with a fractured spine and a shattered soul. Since she'd made the call that got 16 operators killed because she'd been too slow, too careful, too human. Since she'd decided that Sarah Ghost Morrison needed to die so that Sarah Morrison, nobody nurse, could try to live. She stood slowly, picked up the medication cup, and shuffled toward the disposal unit with short, hesitant steps that made her look small and defeated. But inside, her mind was working with the precision of a tactical computer. The night shift at Mercy General was usually quiet, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Minor injuries, drunks, the occasional cardiac event. Sarah preferred it that way. Fewer people to interact with, fewer chances to slip. She'd been here for 10 months, carefully maintaining her cover, letting them think she was nothing more than a mediocre nurse with shaky hands and low self-esteem. It was safer that way, for everyone. She disposed of the pills properly, documenting the waste with handwriting that was neat despite the apparent tremor in her fingers. The documentation was perfect, something that had confused Dr. Stone initially until he decided she probably just copied someone else's format. He never looked closely enough to see how precise her medical assessments actually were, how her trauma notes read like military casualty reports, how she always assessed C-spine first, even when there was zero indication of spinal trauma. Battlefield protocol, ingrained in her bones. Rough night? Sarah glanced up. Dr. Tom Chen stood there, one of the few people in this hospital who treated the staff like human beings. He was in his 50s, with gray streaks in his black hair and smile lines around his eyes that suggested he actually meant it when he smiled. Just clumsy, Dr. Chen. Nothing new. Stone's an ass. Tom said it quietly, checking to make sure they were alone. Don't let him get to you. I've seen your patient notes. You're better than he gives you credit for. Actually, you're better than most of the day shift nurses. Your assessments are always spot on, even if you don't seem confident about them. Something shifted in Sarah's posture. A microsecond of straightening, of pride, before she caught herself and hunched forward again. Thank you, Dr. Chen. That means a lot. He studied her for a moment with curiosity, but then his pager went off. Incoming trauma, MVA with ejection, ETA 4 minutes. Can you set up Bay 3? Of course. Sarah moved immediately, her steps still small and hesitant, but her hands suddenly steadier as she began preparing the trauma bay. Tom noticed but didn't comment. Trauma. This was where things got dangerous for her, where decades of training threatened to surface, where muscle memory from 1,000 combat casualty scenarios tried to override her carefully maintained incompetence. She forced her hands to tremble as she pulled out supplies, deliberately fumbling with an IV kit so that Jessica, the other nurse in the bay, could see her struggle. God, Morrison, just let me do it, Jessica huffed, taking the IV kit from her hands. Why are you even in trauma? You should be in the clinic or something. Sorry. But inside, Sarah's mind was calculating. MVA with ejection. Motor vehicle accident, patient thrown from vehicle. High likelihood of head trauma, internal bleeding, possible tension pneumothorax if there was chest impact. She'd seen hundreds of these, had treated them under mortar fire in the backs of moving vehicles, in conditions that would make this pristine American ER look like a luxury resort. But Jessica couldn't know that. No one could know that. The ambulance arrived, sirens wailing. Paramedics rushed in with the patient, a man in his 20s, unconscious, obvious head trauma, breathing labored. Tom Chen started calling orders immediately, the team moving with practiced efficiency. Sarah stayed in the background, fetching supplies when asked, doing simple tasks, keeping her hands visibly shaky, staying out of the way. But her eyes never stopped moving, scanning the monitors, watching the patient's vitals, noting the asymmetric chest rise, left side not expanding properly. Possible pneumothorax. Tom hadn't caught it yet. He was focused on the head injury, calling for CT. The patient's oxygen saturation was dropping. 94, 92, 90. Sarah's hands clenched. Every instinct screamed at her to intervene. One simple procedure, needle decompression, second intercostal space, mid-clavicular line, 14-gauge angiocath. 15 seconds and she could fix it. But that would raise questions. That would make them look at her differently. That would threaten everything she'd built here. This safe, invisible life she'd carved out after crawling through hell. The patient's O2 sat hit 88. His lips were turning blue. Dr. Chen, Sarah said it quietly, her voice barely audible over the organized chaos. He didn't hear her. She tried again, slightly louder, forcing herself to sound uncertain. Dr. Chen, maybe his left chest isn't moving? Tom glanced up, irritated at the interruption. Then he looked at the patient. Really looked. His eyes widened. Damn. Decreased breath sounds left side. Tension pneumothorax. Get me a needle decompression kit. Now! Jessica ran for the kit while Tom positioned himself. Sarah stayed back, watching with a carefully neutral expression as Tom performed the procedure she could have done faster, cleaner, with one hand tied behind her back. The hiss of escaping air, the immediate improvement in the patient's breathing. The O2 sat climbing back up. Tom had done it correctly. He was a good doctor. But it had taken him 90 seconds. She could have done it in 15. Good catch, Morrison, Tom said over his shoulder, surprise evident in his voice. That could have been bad. Just lucky, Sarah mumbled, looking at her feet. Jessica shot her a skeptical glance but said nothing. The rest of the trauma was routine. Stabilize, CT scan, transfer to ICU. Sarah cleaned up the bay afterward, her movements slow and methodical, maintaining her clumsy persona even though her mind was racing. That had been close. Too close. She'd almost intervened directly, almost blown 10 months of cover over one patient. The ER settled back into relative quiet around 1 a.m. Sarah made her rounds, checking on patients, documenting everything in her careful handwriting, avoiding Dr. Stone, who was now in his office doing paperwork. She was restocking supply closet 4 when she heard it. A sound that didn't belong in a civilian hospital. Distant, but distinct, growing louder. The rhythmic whump, whump, whump of helicopter rotors. Heavy rotors, military heavy. Sarah's head snapped up. Her entire body went still. Every muscle locked, her breathing controlled, her eyes sharp and focused in a way they never were during her shifts. She moved to the window, looking out into the night sky. There, running lights cutting through darkness. The unmistakable silhouette of a UH-60 Blackhawk, approaching fast and low. Sarah's heart rate didn't spike, it slowed. Combat breathing, automatic after 2 decades. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out. That wasn't a medevac helicopter. That was a military bird, and it was coming here. Her jaw clenched, the thin scar above her left eyebrow, courtesy of an IED in Kandahar, suddenly visible as she pushed her hair back unconsciously. Her posture straightened without her realizing it. The Black Hawk descended toward the hospital's helipad, rotors churning the air, and Sarah felt something stir deep in her chest. Something she'd been suppressing for 10 months. Something she'd hoped she could keep buried forever. The sound of those rotors brought back memories she didn't want. Faces she'd lost. Decisions she'd made. A life she'd walked away from because staying in it would have destroyed what was left of her soul. Whatever was in that helicopter, whatever was about to come through those ER doors, it was going to change everything. Sarah forced her shoulders to hunch forward again, forced the tremor back into her hands, forced herself to become small and invisible once more. But this time it felt like a lie, even to herself. The Black Hawk touched down with practiced precision. The side door slid open before the skids fully settled. Figures emerged, moving with coordinated efficiency that made every civilian security guard in the vicinity take an instinctive step backward. Sarah watched from the ER entrance. Even from a distance, she could identify the gear. Multicam plate carriers, HK-416 rifles with suppressors, high-cut ballistic helmets, tactical headsets. But it was the way they moved that told her everything. The spacing, the coverage patterns, the silent communication. Navy SEALs. What the hell? Jessica appeared beside Sarah, staring up at the rooftop. Is that the military? Are we being invaded or something? I don't know, Sarah murmured, but her hands had stopped shaking. Her gray-blue eyes tracked every movement as the SEALs moved toward the rooftop access door. 2 of them carried a stretcher between them. Even from here, she could see the dark stains on the tactical gear, of the man on the stretcher. Blood. A lot of it. Doctor. Stone emerged from his office, irritation written across his perfect features. What's all the noise about? Chen, do you know anything about... He stopped mid-sentence as the rooftop access door burst open and the SEALs entered the ER, bringing with them the smell of gunpowder, sweat, and blood. The man in the lead was enormous, 6'4" at least, probably 240 of solid muscle. His plate carrier was loaded with magazines, medical supplies, communications equipment. A red-brown, tactical beard covered his jaw. Even in the fluorescent hospital lighting, Sarah could see the scar cutting through his right eyebrow. His blue eyes swept the ER with the alertness of someone who'd survived too many ambushes to ever be caught off guard. Around his neck, visible against his tan shirt, hung a SEAL trident on a chain. "We need a doctor, now." His voice carried the kind of command that made people move without thinking. Critical GSW to the chest, possible tension pneumothorax. Lost a lot of blood. He's been stable for transport, but he's deteriorating. Dr. Stone stepped forward, straightening his coat even now, worried about appearance. "I'm Dr. Richard Stone, attending physician. What's the patient's..." His name's classified. The lead SEAL cut him off, not rudely, but with absolute finality. "What you need to know: gunshot wound to the right upper chest, entry wound only, bullet still lodged. Packed with combat gauze, pressure dressing applied 22 minutes ago. He's got about 4 units of blood in him, probably needs more. No allergies, blood type O negative. Now can we move?" They were already moving, carrying the stretcher toward Trauma Bay 1, not waiting for permission. The other SEALs fanned out automatically, taking up positions that gave them clear sightlines of all entrances. They weren't just securing the patient, they were securing the entire ER. Sarah recognized the pattern immediately. These men expected trouble to follow them. The patient on the stretcher was younger, maybe early 30s, with the same athletic build as his team. His tactical gear had been partially cut away to access the wound, revealing a compression bandage dark with blood. His face was pale, lips slightly blue, breathing rapid and shallow. Sarah's trained eyes assessed him in seconds. Significant blood loss, possible developing tension pneumothorax despite the combat gauze. Tachycardic, likely going into shock. She found herself following them automatically, staying in the background as always, but unable to look away. Jessica and Tom Chen joined them, along with Marcus, another nurse. The trauma bay filled quickly, too quickly, with the 4 medically trained hospital staff and 5 heavily armed SEALs who refused to leave their teammate. "I need you all to step back," Stone said, addressing the SEALs with the kind of tone he probably thought projected authority. "This is a sterile environment, and you're contaminating it. Wait outside." The lead SEAL didn't even acknowledge him. He moved to the head of the stretcher, one hand on his teammate's shoulder. "Breaker to Phoenix. Stay with me, brother. You're home. These docs are going to fix you up." "Sir, I really must insist," Stone started. "Then insist quietly while you work." Breaker cut him off, his blue eyes fixing on Stone with an intensity that made the doctor actually step back. "We don't leave our brothers. You do your job, we'll stay out of your way. But we're not leaving." Stone's jaw tightened, but he turned to the patient, pulling on gloves. "Fine, someone get me vitals. I need portable X-ray, blood work." "Blood pressure 70/40 and dropping," Tom Chen called out, watching the monitors. "Heart rate 140, respiratory rate 32, oxygen saturation 89%. Sarah stayed near the supply cabinet, her assigned position, her hands clasped in front of her in their usual trembling grip. But her eyes never left the patient. She watched Stone examine the wound, saw him peel back the combat gauze carefully. The bullet had entered just below the right clavicle, probably missed the subclavian artery, or the patient would already be dead. But there was still significant bleeding. The trajectory suggested possible lung involvement. Bullet's still in there, Stone said, more to himself than anyone. We'll need to get him to surgery for extraction. In the meantime, we need to stabilize. The patient's oxygen saturation alarm went off. 85%, 82. Sarah's entire body went rigid. She knew that sound, knew what it meant. Her eyes fixed on the patient's chest. The right side was rising normally. The left side wasn't moving as much as it should. The trachea was starting to deviate, jugular vein distension becoming visible. Tension pneumothorax. The lung had collapsed. Air building up in the chest cavity with nowhere to go, putting pressure on the heart and great vessels. If it wasn't decompressed immediately, he'd arrest within minutes. Her hands stopped shaking completely. They curled into fists at her sides, nails digging into palms hard enough to hurt. Every muscle in her body screamed at her to move, to act, to fix it. She'd done this procedure hundreds of times, had performed it in the back of moving vehicles under fire, had taught it to dozens of combat medics. 14-gauge angiocath, second intercostal space, mid-clavicular line. Insert until you hear the hiss of escaping air. 15 seconds, maybe 20. She could save his life, but she couldn't move, couldn't reveal herself, couldn't throw away 10 months of careful cover for one patient, no matter how much every instinct screamed at her to act. Dr. Stone, Tom Chen's voice was urgent. Decreased breath sounds on the left, tracheal deviation, JVD, he's got a tension pneumothorax. I can see that, Stone snapped, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. He looked around. Where's the needle decompression kit? Top drawer, left side, Jessica said, but she was across the room, and in her rush to get it, she knocked over an IV pole. It crashed to the floor with a clatter that made everyone jump. 80% oxygen saturation, 78. Breaker's voice cut through the chaos, deadly calm. Doc, my brother is dying, fix it, now. Stone's hands were shaking as he finally got the kit open. He positioned the needle, trying to find the landmark. Second intercostal space, mid-clavicular line. But his hands weren't steady. He'd done this procedure maybe 5 times in his career, always in controlled conditions, never on someone who was actively dying. 75%. The patient's lips were turning blue. Sarah's vision narrowed to a tunnel. Her breathing slowed, controlled, automatic combat breathing. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out. Her hands were completely steady now, hanging at her sides. Ready. She took 1 step forward, then caught herself. She couldn't. She couldn't do this. If she intervened, if she showed what she really was, everything she'd built would collapse. They'd start asking questions. They'd dig into her background. They'd figure out who she really was. And then the past she'd been running from for 10 months would catch up to her. 72%. The monitor was screaming now. Stone inserted the needle, but his angle was wrong. Too medial, not lateral enough. He'd missed the intercostal space entirely. Might even hit the internal mammary artery. Sarah could see it from across the room. Could predict the exact moment he'd realize his mistake. Damn it, Stone muttered, pulling the needle back. I need to. The patient's eyes rolled back. His body went limp. He's arresting, Tom Chen shouted. And Sarah moved. She didn't think about it, didn't plan it, didn't make a conscious choice. Her body simply moved with the muscle memory of 2 decades of combat medicine, crossing the space to the trauma bay in 4 long strides that were nothing like her usual shuffling steps. Her hands shot out and grabbed a fresh needle decompression kit from the supply cart without looking. Her movements were precise, economical. 20 years of training distilled into pure reflex. Move. Her voice was different, not the hesitant, apologetic murmur they were used to. A command voice that cut through the chaos like a blade. Dr. Stone actually stepped back, shocked. Sarah's hands, perfectly steady, not even a hint of tremor, ripped open the kit. Her gray-blue eyes were focused with surgical precision on the patient's chest. She didn't need to feel for landmarks. She could see them, the anatomy visible in her mind like an X-ray overlay. Second intercostal space, mid-clavicular line, left side. Her fingers found the spot in 1 second. The 14-gauge angiocath was positioned in another second. She inserted it with controlled force, 45-degree angle, advancing until she felt the subtle pop of penetrating the pleura. The hiss of escaping air was immediate and dramatic. The patient's oxygen saturation began climbing. 75, 78, 82. His chest began rising symmetrically. His color started improving. The entire trauma bay was silent except for the steady beeping of the monitor and the hiss of air still escaping through the angiocath. Sarah stood over the patient, her hands still on the needle. Her posture was completely different from the hunched, submissive stance everyone was used to. Her shoulders were back, spine straight, head up. She was taller somehow, her small frame radiating a presence that filled the room. The dirty blonde hair that had been falling messily around her face was pushed back, revealing the thin scar above her left eyebrow clearly for the first time. Her gray-blue eyes were sharp and alert, scanning the monitors, assessing the patient with professional efficiency. She looked nothing like the incompetent, nervous nurse they all knew. She looked like a soldier. Breaker had moved closer during the procedure. He now stood less than 3 feet from her, his 6'4" frame towering over her 5'4" height. But Sarah didn't step back or hunch her shoulders like she normally would. She held her ground, maintaining eye contact with a man who'd probably seen more combat than most people could imagine. "That was a combat insertion," Breaker said quietly, his blue eyes studying her face with intensity. "Angle, depth, speed. That wasn't textbook medicine. That was field procedure. Battlefield medicine." He paused, his gaze dropping to her hands, to the small scars on the backs of them, marks she normally kept hidden, but which were now clearly visible. "Where'd you learn to do that, ma'am?" Sarah's jaw tightened. 10 months, 7,296 hours of hiding, of playing weak, of pretending to be something she wasn't, gone in 15 seconds. "Does it matter?" Her voice was still that command tone, steady, controlled, not apologetic, not uncertain. "Yeah," Breaker said softly. "I think it does." The silence stretched. Tom Chen was staring at her like he'd never seen her before. Jessica's mouth was hanging open. Dr. Stone looked like his entire understanding of reality had just been rewritten. And somewhere in the distance, barely audible over the trauma bay's sounds, Sarah heard something that made her blood run cold. Sirens. Not ambulances. Police sirens. Multiple units, converging on the hospital. And underneath them, a different sound, one that didn't belong. The low rumble of heavy vehicles, moving fast. Breaker heard it too. His entire posture changed. His hand moved to his rifle. "Contact inbound," one of the other SEALs said quietly from his position by the door. Multiple vehicles, black SUVs, no markings. They just pulled into the parking lot. "How many?" Breaker asked, his voice still calm but with an edge of steel underneath. 6 vehicles. Estimate 4 to 6 per vehicle. 30+ hostiles. Sarah felt something click inside her. The same cold calculation that had kept her alive through 2 decades of combat. She looked at Breaker. "Those men who shot your teammate, they followed you here, didn't they?" Breaker's jaw tightened. Phoenix witnessed something he shouldn't have. War crimes, arms dealing. Our target had contractors on payroll. We thought we'd lost them in the exfil. "You didn't," Sarah said flatly. The trauma bay doors opened. A hospital security guard appeared, his face pale, his hands shaking on his radio. "Dr. Stone, we've got a situation. Armed men just entered the main lobby. They're demanding access to the military patient. They've got weapons, rifles, body armor. They look like..." "Contractors," Sarah finished. Her voice was cold, dead, the voice of someone who'd seen this scenario play out 100 times before. Private military, they're here to finish the job. They'll kill anyone who gets in their way. We need to evacuate, Stone said, his voice rising with panic. Get patients out. Call the police. No time, Sarah cut him off. Evacuation would take 20 minutes minimum. We don't have 20 minutes. And the police? She shook her head. Contractors like this will go through local cops like tissue paper. Then what do we do? Tom asked quietly. Sarah looked at the monitors. At Phoenix, still unconscious, still critical, still unable to be moved. She looked at Breaker and his team. 4 SEALs, heavily armed, highly trained, but outnumbered 6 to 1. She looked at the hospital around her, at the staff she'd worked with for 10 months, at the patients in beds who had no idea what was about to happen. And she made a choice. The same choice she'd been making for 20 years, even though it had cost her everything, even though it had broken her, even though she'd sworn she'd never make it again. She straightened her shoulders fully, let the mask fall away completely. When she spoke, her voice carried command authority that made everyone in the room stand straighter without thinking. Tom, start a quiet evacuation. East wing exit. No running, no panic. Get as many patients and staff out as you can. Marcus, Jessica, help him. Stone, call the police, but tell them to stage 3 blocks away. If they come in hot, the contractors will start shooting civilians. Who the hell do you think you are to give orders? Stone started. Sarah turned to him. Her gray-blue eyes were ice cold. I'm the person who's going to keep everyone in this hospital alive tonight. Now do what I said, or get out of my way. Stone's mouth opened, closed. He nodded and left. Sarah turned to Breaker. How much ammo do you have? Full combat load, 6 mags each, 210 rounds per mag, plus sidearms. Not enough for 30-plus hostiles, not if they're smart. Sarah's mind was racing through tactical scenarios. They'll try to pin you down, overwhelmed through superior numbers. You'll need a force multiplier. What are you suggesting? Breaker asked. Sarah looked at him, really looked at him, soldier to soldier. I'm suggesting you're about to get some help from someone who knows this hospital better than anyone. Someone who's planned defensive operations in worse terrain than this. Someone who, she paused, someone who used to do this for a living. Who are you? Breaker asked quietly. Sarah Morrison took a deep breath. For 10 months, she'd been running from this moment, from this question, from the truth that defined her more than anything else in her life. My name is Major General Sarah Morrison, call sign, Ghost, 75th Ranger Regiment, then JSOC, then Pentagon, 20 years of service. And these contractors? She smiled, but there was no humor in it. They just made the worst mistake of their lives by coming into my hospital. Breaker's eyes widened. Ghost? The Ghost? You're supposed to be dead, I know. Long story. Sarah cut him off. Right now we've got maybe 3 minutes before they breach. Are you going to stand there being shocked, or are you going to help me defend this hospital? Breaker stared at her for one more second. Then he smiled, a warrior's smile. Yes, ma'am. What are your orders? And just like that, Major General Sarah Ghost Morrison was back in command. The trembling nurse was gone. The soldier had returned. And God help anyone who stood in her way. The contractor on his knees stared up at Sarah with genuine terror in his eyes. His teammates froze, weapons half raised, caught between training and shock. Ghost? One of them whispered. That's impossible. You died in Syria. Clearly not. Sarah's voice was surgical room calm. She kept the weapon trained on the lead contractor's skull, her finger resting just outside the trigger guard. Professional. Controlled. Now here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell your men to lower their weapons. Then you're all going to walk out of this hospital. Tell your employer the mission failed. The contractor's jaw clenched. You know we can't do that. Then you're going to die here. Sarah said it like she was discussing the weather. Your choice. Breaker moved up beside her, his rifle covering the other contractors. Ma'am, we've got 6 more vehicles outside. This is just the entry team. I know. Sarah didn't take her eyes off her prisoner. They sent the second string first. Test the defenses. The real operators are waiting to see how this plays out. How do you? Because it's what I would do. Sarah cut him off. Then louder, addressing all the contractors. You have 10 seconds to decide. Walk away or I put your team leader down and we see how committed the rest of you are to dying for a paycheck. You won't shoot. The lead contractor's voice wavered slightly. Too many witnesses. You're trying to hide. Killing me puts you right back in the spotlight. Sarah smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. I stopped hiding the moment you pointed a gun at my staff. 10, 9, 8. Wait. One of the other contractors lowered his rifle. Jesus, Marcus, she's serious. This isn't worth it. Intel said the target was protected by 4 SEALs, not the ghost herself. Shut up, Davis. 7, 6. Sarah's voice never changed pitch. Marcus was sweating now. You're bluffing. 5, 4. Our employer will send more. Dozens more. You can't fight them all. 3, 2. God damn it. Marcus raised his hands. Stand down, everyone stand down. The contractors lowered their weapons slowly. Sarah watched each one, cataloging their reactions. Davis was relieved. 2 others looked angry but compliant. The last one, young, maybe mid-20s with dead eyes, kept his finger near the trigger. A true believer, the dangerous kind. Weapons on the floor, slowly, Sarah ordered. Breaker, secure them. The SEALs moved with practiced efficiency, zip-tying hands, clearing weapons. Sarah kept her gun on Marcus until he was secured, then safed the weapon and handed it to one of the SEALs. Only then did she allow herself to breathe. Her hands started shaking again. Not from fear, from adrenaline crash. From the weight of 10 months of pretending suddenly lifted, leaving her exposed and raw. Tom Chen appeared in the doorway, his face pale. Sarah, what the hell is happening? Who are you really? Before she could answer, the young contractor with dead eyes smiled. You think this is over? You think 6 of us was the whole team? He laughed. Lady, you just painted the biggest target on this hospital. Our employer doesn't accept failure. He'll burn this whole place down to get to that SEAL. Sarah crouched down to his eye level. What's your name? Bennett. Well, Bennett, here's what you don't understand. I've defended worse positions with worse odds. I've held off insurgent armies with nothing but a medical kit and 3 bullets. You think your employer scares me? She leaned closer. I've stared down warlords who made your boss look like a schoolyard bully. So you go ahead and tell him Sarah Morrison is alive. Tell him the ghost is protecting that SEAL. And tell him if he wants Phoenix, he'll have to go through me first. Bennett's smile faded. Get them to a secure room. Sarah stood, addressing Breaker. Not the basement, too easy to breach. 3rd floor, supply room C. 1 entrance, reinforced door, no windows. How do you know the hospital layout that well? Jessica asked. She'd been standing in the corner, watching everything with wide eyes. Because I've been here 10 months planning exactly this scenario, Sarah said quietly. I knew someone might come for me eventually. I prepared. The truth hit them all like a physical blow. You weren't hiding, Tom said slowly. You were fortifying. Sarah didn't respond. She turned to Breaker. How many rounds did your team fire getting Phoenix here? None. Clean exfil until the contractors opened up half a mile from the hospital. So they're coordinated, well-funded, persistent. Sarah's mind was racing through tactical scenarios. They'll regroup, come back harder. We've got maybe 15 minutes before the next wave. Then we evacuate. Dr. Stone had reappeared, trying to reassert some authority. Get everyone out, call in SWAT, let the professionals handle this. I am a professional. Sarah's voice was ice. And evacuation puts civilians in the open where the contractors can target them. We're safer defending in place. That's insane. This is a hospital, not a military base. It's both now. Sarah looked at him, really looked at him. Doctor Stone, you've spent 10 months treating me like I was incompetent, worthless. You humiliated me in front of staff, made me kneel on the floor picking up pills while you lectured me about my failures. Her voice was quiet, deadly. Did it ever occur to you that maybe I let you? That maybe I needed you all to think I was weak so you'd leave me alone? Stone's face went red. I don't have time for your victim complex. You need to shut up and listen. Breaker's command voice cut through the room. That woman just saved my brother's life twice and disarmed 6 hostiles without firing a shot. You're a surgeon. She's a soldier. This is her territory now. So sit down, do what she says, or get the hell out of her way. Stone's mouth opened, closed. He sat down. Sarah felt something crack inside her chest. Not breaking, healing. For 10 months, she'd swallowed humiliation, absorbed contempt, let herself be diminished. And in one moment, a stranger had defended her more fiercely than anyone had in years. Thank you, she said it quietly, just to Breaker. He nodded. What are your orders, General? The title felt like putting on an old jacket. Worn, familiar, uncomfortable and perfect all at once. Tom, continue the evacuation, but keep it quiet. Ambulatory patients first, then staff, then critical cases if we have time. Jessica, Marcus, help him. Stone, you're on standby for surgical backup if Phoenix crashes. Breaker, I need your team positioned at choke points, main entrance, surgical wing access, and the east corridor. Everyone moved except Breaker. What about you? I'm going to do what I do best. Plan how to keep people alive when everything goes to hell. She walked to the nurse's station and pulled up the hospital blueprints on the computer. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, muscle memory from 1,000 operational briefings taking over. Breaker watched over her shoulder. You really have been planning this. For 10 months, every shift, I've been memorizing sight lines, choke points, defensive positions. I knew my past would catch up eventually. I just didn't know when. Sarah highlighted sections of the blueprint. The hospital has 3 main entrances. We can seal 2 with the emergency lockdown system that funnels them through the main lobby. That's a kill box if we set it up right. No, Sarah's voice was sharp. No killing unless absolutely necessary. These are contractors, not terrorists. They're doing a job. Most of them have families. We disable, we disarm, we contain. We only kill if there's no other option. Breaker studied her face. That's why you left, isn't it? The killing. Sarah's hands stilled on the keyboard. I gave 20 years, planned operations in 17 countries, sent thousands of soldiers into combat. Most came home, some didn't, and every single one who didn't comes to me in my sleep. Her voice cracked. The last mission, Syria, I lost 16 operators because I miscalculated. 16 families destroyed because I made the wrong call. So yes, Commander, that's why I left, because I couldn't carry any more ghosts. The silence stretched between them. For what it's worth, Breaker said quietly, those 16 operators knew the risks. They chose to be there. That's on them, not you. Tell that to their children. Before Breaker could respond, one of his team members, a younger SEAL Sarah remembered from earlier, appeared in the doorway. Ma'am, we've got movement outside, multiple vehicles repositioning. They're setting up a perimeter. Sarah pulled up the security camera feeds. 6 black SUVs had formed a loose circle around the hospital. Men in tactical gear were establishing positions. Not rushing, not panicking, professional. They're not coming in yet, Sarah said. They're waiting for something. For what? For their employer to decide if Phoenix is worth the exposure. Attacking a civilian hospital is one thing. Doing it with the ghost defending it? She shook her head. That's going to make national news, international news. Whoever hired these contractors is weighing whether killing one witness is worth that kind of scrutiny. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Sarah stared at it for a long moment, then answered on speaker. Major General Morrison. The voice was male, educated, with the smooth confidence of money and power. Or should I call you Nurse Sarah? I must admit your disappearing act was impressive. It took my people 6 months to confirm you were alive. Who is this? Someone who has a problem. Your patient, the SEAL, witnessed something he shouldn't have. A transaction. My transaction. Now he's going to testify, and that testimony will cost me billions and probably my freedom. I can't allow that. Then you have a problem, Sarah said flatly, because he's under my protection now. The man laughed. You're one woman, General. I have 60 contractors outside your hospital. I have resources you can't imagine. I have the kind of money that makes problems disappear. Walk away. Let me finish this quietly. I'll even pay you. Name your price. You can't afford me. Everyone has a price. Mine is 63. Sarah's voice went cold. That's how many operators I've lost over 20 years. How many I've watched die because of men like you. Men who profit off war, who sell weapons to the highest bidder, who treat soldiers like commodities. So, no, there's no amount of money you can offer that will make me walk away from this. The silence on the other end was long. Then you've chosen to die protecting a stranger. That's remarkably stupid for someone with your reputation. He's not a stranger. He's a soldier who got shot doing his job. That makes him my responsibility. Sarah paused. And you made a mistake calling me. Now I have your voice, your speech patterns. Educated, probably Ivy League. East Coast accent, slight British inflection suggesting time abroad. You're not just a defense contractor. You're someone big. Someone with political connections, which means you have more to lose than just money. Another long silence. You're clever. It won't save you. We'll see. Come ahead, my door's open. She hung up. Breaker was staring at her. That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever heard. Both, Sarah admitted, but now he's rattled. Powerful men don't like being profiled, don't like being seen. He'll make a mistake. Or he'll send everyone he has to kill you. Probably that too. Tom Chen rushed back into the nurse's station, his face ashen. Sarah, we've got a problem. We can't evacuate critical patients. Mrs. Patterson in ICU is on a ventilator. Mr. Rodriguez just came out of heart surgery. Moving them could kill them. Sarah closed her eyes. The tactical calculus shifted immediately. 12 civilians, 4 SEALs, 1 burned-out general, against 60 trained contractors. Okay, Sarah opened her eyes. Okay, new plan. Tom, I need you to move all critical patients to the 3rd floor ICU. It's the most defensible position. Breaker, your team sets up a defensive perimeter around that floor. Nothing gets through. What about you? Tom asked. Sarah pulled up the blueprints again. I'm going to do something incredibly stupid. I'm going to let them in. What? They want Phoenix. They think he's the only reason I'm defending this hospital. So I'm going to give them a target. Sarah's finger traced a path on the blueprint. We move Phoenix, still critical, still sedated, to a different floor. 2nd floor, Surgical Bay 2. We make it look like that's where we're dug in. Draw them there. While they're focused on that bay, we move the real patients and staff to safety. That's using your teammate as bait, Breaker said carefully. Yes, which is why I need your permission. He's your brother, your team. I won't make that call without you. Breaker looked at her for a long moment. Phoenix would do it in a heartbeat. He'd volunteer before you finished asking. That doesn't make it right. No, but it makes it necessary. Breaker held out his hand. We're in, General, all the way. Sarah shook it, soldier to soldier. Then let's get to work. We've got maybe 10 minutes before they breach. The hospital transformed. Tom and the remaining staff moved patients with quiet efficiency. Breaker's team set up defensive positions, using medical equipment as makeshift barricades. Sarah moved through it all like a ghost, offering suggestions, adjusting positions, her mind 3 steps ahead of every scenario. Jessica found her in the pharmacy, gathering supplies. "I don't understand." Jessica's voice was small. "You let us treat you like garbage for 10 months. Dr. Stone humiliated you. I complained about you constantly. Why didn't you say something? Why didn't you defend yourself?" Sarah didn't stop working. "Because I deserved it." "What?" 16 people died because of me, Jessica. 16 operators with families, with children, with futures. They died because I sent them into a situation I should have recognized as a trap. So when Dr. Stone made me kneel on the floor, when you complained about covering for me, when everyone treated me like I was worthless, Sarah's voice cracked. It felt appropriate. It felt like the punishment I deserved. That's not healthy. I know. Sarah finally looked up. But it was all I had. I couldn't be a soldier anymore, couldn't command, couldn't plan operations, so I became someone else, someone small, someone who couldn't hurt anyone. Until tonight. Until tonight, Sarah agreed. And now I'm right back where I started, making life and death decisions, putting people in danger, being the ghost. Jessica was quiet for a moment, then, "Those 16 operators, would they want you to suffer like this?" "I don't know. I think they'd want you to forgive yourself." Sarah's hands stilled on the medical supplies. "I don't know how. Maybe start by letting people help you, by letting us see who you really are." Jessica paused. "You saved that SEAL's life tonight. You're protecting this entire hospital. You're not the person who made a mistake 10 months ago. You're the person who's fighting to make sure no one else dies. That's worth something." Before Sarah could respond, Breaker's voice crackled over the radio. "Ghost, they're moving. All 6 vehicles. Looks like they're breaching simultaneously. Multiple entry points." Sarah grabbed the radio. "Copy. All teams, weapons tight. Disable only. Remember, these are contractors, not enemy combatants. We're buying time, not body count." She turned to Jessica. "Get to the 3rd floor. Stay with the patients. No matter what you hear, don't come down." "Sarah, go. Now." Jessica ran. Sarah took a deep breath, checked her borrowed sidearm, and moved toward the main lobby. The same lobby where she'd shuffled through 10 months of night shifts, head down, invisible. Now she was about to defend it against an army. The glass doors exploded inward. Flashbangs detonated, filling the space with light and sound. Contractors poured through, weapons up, moving with professional precision. And Sarah Morrison, the nurse they'd all mocked, the woman they'd underestimated, the ghost who'd been hiding in plain sight, stepped into view. "Gentlemen," her voice carried across the chaos, "welcome to my hospital. Let me show you how we treat unwanted guests." The first contractor raised his weapon. Sarah was faster. The real battle was about to begin. Sarah didn't fire. She dropped below the contractor's sightline, using the reception desk as cover, and kicked out hard at the man's knee. The joint hyperextended with a sickening crack. He went down screaming. His partner swung toward her. Sarah was already moving, closing the distance before he could aim. She grabbed his rifle barrel, redirecting it toward the ceiling as he fired. The burst went high, shattering fluorescent lights. Her elbow drove into his throat. He dropped, gasping. 3 seconds. 2 contractors down. 0 shots fired by her. "Contact left," someone shouted. Breaker's team opened up from their positions. Controlled bursts, precise. They weren't trying to kill, they were suppressing, forcing the contractors to take cover, buying Sarah time. More contractors poured through the entrance. Sarah counted 8, 10, 12. Too many for the lobby. They'd planned this well. A canister bounced across the floor toward her. Smoke grenade. Sarah grabbed it and threw it back in one motion. It detonated among the contractors, filling their entry point with thick gray smoke. Shouts of confusion, someone coughing. "Fall back to secondary positions," Sarah ordered into her radio. "Don't let them establish a foothold." She moved through the chaos like water, flowing around obstacles, using her knowledge of the hospital layout to stay 2 steps ahead. A contractor appeared from the smoke, weapon raised. Sarah was behind a medical cart, pushing it hard into his midsection. He doubled over. She swept his legs. He hit the floor hard. "Where is she?" someone shouted in the smoke. "Where's the target?" "Forget the target. Find the woman." Sarah smiled grimly. They were focused on her now. Good. That meant they weren't thinking about Phoenix, about the patients, about the real mission. She keyed her radio. "Tom, status on patient movement? 70% clear. Need another 5 minutes. You've got 3. Move faster." A burst of gunfire tore through the smoke, too close. Sarah felt the heat of rounds passing inches from her head. She dropped flat, crawled behind a concrete support pillar. Her heart was hammering now. Not from fear, from adrenaline. From being alive in a way she hadn't felt in 10 months. She hated that she'd missed this. "Breaker, I need you to create a distraction. Something big." Define big. "How do you feel about exploding oxygen tanks?" A pause, then, "I feel pretty good about that, actually. Give me 30 seconds. Sarah counted. 28 seconds later, an explosion rocked the East Corridor. Not massive, but loud enough to make everyone flinch, to make the contractors turn, to split their attention. Sarah used the moment. She broke from cover, sprinting across the lobby toward the stairwell. A contractor saw her, shouted, fired. Rounds sparked off the metal doorframe as she dove through. She took the stairs 3 at a time, her legs burning, her lungs screaming. Behind her, boots thundered. They were following. She'd wanted them to follow. Second floor. She burst through the door into a corridor she knew intimately, had walked 1,000 times on night shifts, had memorized every room, every junction, every place someone could hide or fight or die. She went this way. Spread out. Cover all exits. Sarah ducked into a patient room, empty now, evacuated, and waited. Breathing controlled, weapon ready. She counted footsteps. 3 contractors moving past her position, 2 more hanging back covering. She stepped out behind the rear pair. "Excuse me." They spun. Too slow. Sarah's borrowed pistol was already pressed against the first one's vest. "Drop your weapons or I shoot through the armor. At this range, it'll penetrate." It probably wouldn't, but they didn't know that. The first contractor hesitated. The second one was smarter. He dropped his rifle immediately, hands up. "Smart man," Sarah said. "Your partner should learn from you." The first contractor's jaw clenched. Then he dropped his weapon too. "On your knees, hands behind your head." They complied. Sarah zip-tied them with supplies she'd stashed in the room earlier, then took their radios and weapons. "How many more of you are there?" she asked. Silence. Sarah keyed one of the captured radios. "This is Ghost. To whoever's in charge of this operation, I've just captured 2 more of your people. That makes 8 secured. How many more do you want to lose?" Static. Then a new voice. Older. Authoritative. "General Morrison, I'm Colonel Vance, tactical commander for this operation. Former Delta. I know who you are. I know what you've done. I'm offering you a professional courtesy. Surrender now, and I'll ensure your safety. Keep fighting, and people will die." "People are already dying, Colonel. Your people. And you know why? Because you took a paycheck to attack a civilian hospital. That's not Delta. That's not professional. That's mercenary work, and it's beneath you." A long pause. "You don't understand the situation." "I understand perfectly. Your employer is a coward who's willing to kill a wounded soldier rather than face justice. And you're enabling him. How do you sleep at night?" The same way you did, General, by telling myself I was following orders. The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. Because he was right. How many operations had she planned? How many people had she sent into danger? All while telling herself she was just following orders. I stopped following those orders, Colonel. I walked away. You can too. No, ma'am, I can't. I have men who depend on me, families to feed. This job pays our mortgages, sends our kids to college. I don't have the luxury of a conscience anymore. Then you've already lost the only thing that matters. Sarah cut the transmission. Her radio crackled. Breaker's voice. Ghost, we've got a problem. They're not just coming through the main entrance anymore. They're breaching the emergency wing. And the parking garage. They're surrounding us. Sarah closed her eyes, ran the numbers. 12 contractors down. That left at least 40. Breaker had 4 SEALs. She had herself. 5 against 40. In a building full of civilians. The math didn't work. Tom, she keyed her radio. Patient evacuation status? 90%. Last critical patient is being moved now. But Sarah, we've got a problem. Mrs. Patterson's ventilator is failing. The battery backup isn't holding. She needs to be plugged into wall power or she'll die. How long does she have? 10 minutes, maybe less. Sarah felt the familiar weight settling on her shoulders, the weight of command, of impossible choices, of knowing that every decision meant someone might live or die. Where is she? 3rd floor, ICU room 6. I'm on my way. Breaker, hold your positions. Do not engage unless you have no choice. Sarah moved through the hospital like a ghost. Her call sign had never been more appropriate. She avoided contractors, used her knowledge of the building to stay hidden, to move through spaces they didn't know existed. 3rd floor. She could hear voices, contractors clearing rooms, methodical and professional. They were getting closer to the ICU. Sarah slipped into room 6. Mrs. Patterson was there, unconscious, the ventilator beside her bed showing a low battery warning. Tom was with her, along with Jessica. Sarah, thank God, Tom said. The wall outlet isn't working. Something's wrong with the circuit. Sarah checked the outlet, flipped the breaker. Nothing. The contractors must have cut power to this wing. She looked at the ventilator. 7 minutes of battery remaining. We need to move her. She's too unstable. Moving her could kill her. Staying here will definitely kill her. Contractors are 2 corridors away. Jessica's face was pale. What do we do? Sarah's mind raced through options. They could try to hold this position, but that meant fighting with a critical patient in the crossfire. They could try to move her, but that risked the ventilator failing mid-transfer. Or, the generator, Sarah said suddenly. The backup generator in the basement. If we can reroute power from there to this wing. That's impossible, Tom said. The electrical system isn't designed for. I don't care what it's designed for. Can it be done? Tom paused. Maybe, but someone would have to go down to the basement, manually reroute the circuits, and the basement is probably crawling with contractors by now. Then I'll go. Sarah, that's suicide. No, it's math. 1 person's life versus 3. Mrs. Patterson, you, Jessica, the equation is simple. You can't, Sarah grabbed Tom's shoulders. Listen to me. I've spent 10 months hiding from who I am, from what I can do. But tonight, right now, I'm the only person in this hospital who has a chance of making it to that basement and back alive. So I'm going. You're going to stay here, keep Mrs. Patterson stable, and trust that I know what I'm doing. Tom stared at her, then nodded slowly. Sarah checked her weapon. 3 rounds left. She'd need more. Jessica held out a hand. In it was a full magazine. I found this on one of the contractors you took down. Figured you might need it. Sarah took it, touched. Thank you. Don't die, okay? I need someone to explain to Dr. Stone that he's an ass. And you do it so much better than I could. Despite everything, Sarah smiled. I'll do my best. She moved into the corridor. Empty, but she could hear voices. getting closer. The contractors were doing a systematic sweep. Professional. Thorough. The stairwell to the basement was 30 yards away. 30 yards of open corridor with no cover. Sarah took a breath, then ran. She made it 15 yards before someone shouted, "Contact! Third floor! East corridor!" Gunfire erupted. Sarah dove through a doorway as rounds chewed up the wall behind her. She rolled, came up firing. 2 rounds. Both hit center mass on body armor. The contractor went down, not dead but definitely out of the fight. Sarah kept moving. 20 yards. 25. A contractor stepped out of a room directly in front of her. They both froze for a microsecond, weapons rising. Sarah was faster. She fired. The round caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. She was past him before he hit the ground. The stairwell door. She slammed through it, took the stairs down, her boots echoing in the concrete shaft. Basement level. She pushed through the door into darkness. The contractors had definitely cut power down here. Emergency lights provided dim illumination, casting everything in red. The generator room was at the far end of the basement. Sarah moved carefully now, weapon up, checking corners. This was the dangerous part. The basement was a maze of corridors and storage rooms. Easy to get lost, easy to get trapped. A flashlight beam cut through the darkness ahead. Sarah pressed herself against the wall, holding her breath. 2 contractors passed, not seeing her. They were talking quietly. "Whole thing is FUBAR. 8 guys down and we haven't even found the target yet." "Forget the target. I want to find that woman, the ghost. You know what the bounty is on her head? 3 million, dead or alive." Sarah's blood ran cold. 3 million. No wonder they were so persistent. The contractors moved on. Sarah waited until their footsteps faded, then continued toward the generator room. The door was locked. Of course it was. Sarah holstered her weapon and pulled out the lockpick set she'd carried for 20 years. Muscle memory took over. 30 seconds later, the lock clicked open. The generator room was massive, filled with industrial equipment that hummed quietly on backup power. Sarah found the main electrical panel and opened it. A mess of wires and circuits. But she'd done field electrical work in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in places where if you didn't know how to jury-rig power systems, people died. She pulled out her flashlight, held it in her teeth, and got to work. 5 minutes. That's all she had before Mrs. Patterson's ventilator died. Her hands moved quickly, tracing circuits, identifying the ones that fed the 3rd floor ICU. She found the damaged section. The contractors had cut 3 main lines. Professional sabotage. Sarah bypassed them, rerouting power through secondary circuits. It wasn't elegant. It probably violated every electrical code in existence, but it would work. She threw the breaker. Nothing happened. Sarah's heart sank. She checked her connections. Everything looked right. Why wasn't it? The backup circuit. She'd forgotten to activate the backup circuit. She found the switch, buried behind a panel she had to physically move. Her fingers were shaking now, not from fear, but from urgency. Mrs. Patterson had maybe 2 minutes left. Sarah threw the backup switch. The lights in the basement flickered, then came on. Full power. She keyed her radio. "Tom, do you have power?" Static. Then, "Yes, we've got power. The ventilator's back online. Sarah, you did it." Sarah allowed herself 1 moment of relief, 1 breath. Then the generator room door opened. Colonel Vance stood there, weapon raised, flanked by 4 contractors. "General Morrison," his voice was tired, "you're making this much harder than it needs to be." Sarah's hand moved toward her weapon. "Don't," Vance said. "You're out of room to run, out of tricks. My men have secured the hospital. Your SEAL team is pinned down. It's over." "It's not over until I say it is. You always were stubborn. I read your file. 20 years of impossible missions. They called you the ghost because you pulled off operations that shouldn't have succeeded. But this?" He shook his head. This isn't an operation. This is suicide. You're protecting one man against 60 contractors. The math doesn't work. I've beaten worse odds. Not alone, you haven't. You always had a team, support, resources. What do you have now? A borrowed gun and a death wish? Sarah's jaw clenched. Because he was right. She was alone. Had been alone for 10 months. Had chosen to be alone because being around people, being responsible for people, meant risking more loss. But then she thought about Tom, risking himself to stay with Mrs. Patterson. About Jessica, finding her ammunition when she needed it. About Breaker, trusting her to use his teammate as bait. About 12 hospital staff who refused to evacuate because their patients needed them. She wasn't alone. She'd never been alone. She'd just been too afraid to let anyone close enough to help. You're right, Colonel. I can't do this alone. Sarah's hand moved away from her weapon. But here's what you don't understand. I'm not alone. Not anymore. Vance frowned. What are you? The lights went out. Complete darkness. Sarah's doing, she'd rigged a kill switch on the generator before Vance arrived. She moved in the darkness like she'd been trained, counting steps, navigating by memory. She heard the contractors shouting, saw their flashlight beams cutting through the black. But Sarah had spent 10 months walking these basement corridors. She knew every pipe, every corner, every obstacle. They didn't. She heard someone trip, fall, curse. Heard Vance ordering his men to stay calm, to establish a perimeter. Too late. Sarah was already gone, moving through maintenance tunnels she discovered months ago. Tunnels the contractors didn't know about. She emerged 3 corridors away, behind their position, keyed her radio. Breaker, I need a miracle. How creative can you get? His response was immediate. How much property damage are we talking? All of it. A pause. Then, I can work with that. 2 minutes later, the hospital's fire suppression system activated. Every sprinkler on every floor. Water cascaded down, turning corridors into rivers, reducing visibility to near zero. In the chaos, Sarah moved. She made her way back to the 3rd floor, using the confusion to slip past contractor positions. She found Tom and Jessica still with Mrs. Patterson, both soaking wet but alive. What's happening? Jessica asked. We're buying time. Where's Breaker? Surgical wing. They're pinned down. Contractors are trying to breach their position. Sarah's radio crackled. Breaker's voice strained. Ghost, we're taking heavy fire. They're using grenades. We can't hold much longer. Sarah closed her eyes, made a calculation, made a choice. Tom, take Jessica and Mrs. Patterson. Get to the roof. There's a helipad. Call for a medevac. What about you? I'm going to get Breaker and his team out. Sarah, go, now. That's an order. Tom hesitated, then nodded. He and Jessica began moving Mrs. Patterson's bed toward the elevator. Sarah went the other way, toward the gunfire, toward the SEALs who were fighting to protect a man they'd never met, because that's what soldiers did. Toward the fight she'd been running from for 10 months. The surgical wing was a war zone. Rounds had torn through walls, shattered equipment, left the corridor looking like something from Fallujah or Kandahar. Sarah had seen this before, too many times, but this was different. This was home. This was her hospital, her people. She found Breaker and his team behind a makeshift barricade of surgical tables and equipment. One SEAL was bleeding from a shoulder wound. Another was limping. They were down to their last magazines. Ghost! Breaker saw her approach. What the hell are you doing here? I told you to stay clear. And I don't take orders well. Never have. Sarah slid in beside him. How many contractors? At least 20. They're preparing to rush us. We're out of time. Sarah looked at the SEAL team. 4 men who'd stayed loyal to their brother even when it meant fighting a losing battle. Who'd trusted her plan even knowing it might get them killed. She'd led men like this before, had watched some of them die, had carried that weight for 10 months. But maybe, just maybe, tonight she could get them out alive. I have an idea, Sarah said, but you're going to have to trust me. Really trust me. Breaker didn't hesitate. What do you need? Everything you have left. Every grenade, every flashbang, every piece of equipment that makes noise or light or smoke. Understanding dawned in Breaker's eyes. You're going to create a diversion. Better, I'm going to make them think we're mounting a counterattack. Make them defensive. And while they're focused on the noise and chaos, we slip away. That's insane. That's why it'll work. They worked quickly, setting up the grenades on timers, positioning flashbangs, creating a symphony of chaos that would detonate in sequence. 30 seconds, Sarah said. When it starts, we move fast. Stay low. Follow me. The first grenade detonated, then another. Flashbangs strobed the corridor with blinding light. Smoke grenades filled the air. And in the confusion, Sarah led the SEALs out through a maintenance passage she'd discovered months ago. They moved single file, weapons ready, expecting contact. But the contractors were too busy responding to the fake counterattack. By the time they realized it was a diversion, Sarah and the SEALs were gone. They reached the roof 10 minutes later. Tom and Jessica were there with Mrs. Patterson. In the distance, Sarah could hear helicopter rotors approaching. Medevac's almost here, Tom said. Sarah, we did it. We actually did it. Sarah looked at the people around her. The hospital staff who'd refused to run. The SEALs who'd fought beside her. The patient they'd all risked everything to protect. And she realized something. She'd spent 10 months trying to hide from who she was, trying to be someone small, someone safe, someone who couldn't hurt anyone. But tonight, being the ghost, being the soldier, being herself, that's what had saved them all. The medevac helicopter landed. Sarah helped load Mrs. Patterson aboard, then Phoenix. The pilot looked at her, did a double take. General Morrison? Ma'am, we were told you were dead, I know. Long story. She turned to Breaker. Get your team in Phoenix out of here. Get him to a secure facility where he can recover and testify. What about you? Sarah looked back at the hospital, at the contractor still inside, still hunting, at the mess she'd created. I'm not done here yet. Sarah, you can't fight them all, Tom said. There's too many. Come with us. If I leave, they'll follow. They'll hunt you down. But if I stay, if I give them what they want, a shot at the ghost, maybe you all make it out alive. Breaker gripped her shoulder. Don't do this. Don't throw your life away. Sarah smiled. It was sad and tired and true. I'm not throwing it away, Commander. For the first time in 10 months, I'm using it for something that matters. She stepped back from the helicopter. Tell Phoenix he's welcome. Tell him to make his testimony count. And tell anyone who asks that Sarah Morrison died tonight protecting her hospital. Let the ghost rest. The helicopter lifted off, rotors churning the air, carrying away the people she'd fought so hard to protect. Sarah watched until it disappeared into the night sky. Then she turned and walked back into the hospital, back toward the contractors who wanted her dead, back toward the fight she'd been running from, back toward the truth she'd finally accepted. She was a soldier, a protector, a ghost who refused to stay dead, and she had one more battle to fight. Sarah descended the stairwell alone, her footsteps echoing in the silence. The hospital felt different now, emptier, like a tomb waiting to be filled. She keyed the radio she'd taken from a contractor earlier. Colonel Vance, this is General Morrison. I'm done running. You want me? Come get me. Main lobby. 5 minutes. Just you and me. Static. Then Vance's voice, cautious. What's your play, General? No play. No tricks. I'm tired, Colonel. Tired of hiding. Tired of fighting. You win. I surrender. But only to you. Face to face. Soldier to soldier. A long pause. How do I know this isn't a trap? You don't, but you know my reputation. I've never lied to an enemy combatant, never broken my word to another soldier. So I'm giving you my word now. I surrender. No conditions, no escape plan, just me, alone, waiting in the lobby. Another pause. Sarah could almost hear him thinking, calculating, weighing the risk. 5 minutes. You try anything, my men open fire. Understood. Sarah cut the transmission and walked into the main lobby. Water from the sprinklers still dripped from the ceiling, pooling on the floor. Broken glass crunched under her boots. The smell of gunpowder hung heavy in the air. She walked to the center of the lobby, under the emergency lights, and waited. 3 minutes later, Colonel Vance appeared. He was older than she'd expected, late 50s, with gray hair and the kind of face that had seen too much combat to ever look peaceful. He moved with a slight limp, favoring his right leg. Old wound, probably Iraq or Afghanistan. Behind him, at a distance, Sarah could see his contractors positioned with rifles trained on her. Vance stopped 10 feet away. His weapon was lowered but ready. You really surrendering, General? Yes. Why? Sarah looked at him, really looked at him. She saw herself 20 years ago, a soldier who believed in the mission, who followed orders, who told themselves the ends justified the means. Because I'm done watching people die for other people's mistakes. Phoenix is safe. The hospital staff is evacuated. The patients are protected. I did what I came to do. Now it's over. Vance studied her face. You look different than your photos. Older. Tired. War does that. Yes, it does. He moved closer, just a few feet now, close enough to talk quietly. You know what happens when I take you in, right? My employer wants you dead. $3 million bounty. My men will want to collect. I know. And you're okay with that? Sarah's hands were shaking now, not from fear, from exhaustion, from 10 months of running finally catching up to her. I've been dead for 10 months, Colonel. What's a few more hours? Vance's expression shifted. Something like pity crossed his face. You really have given up. Not given up, just finished. Sarah's voice was quiet. I spent 20 years fighting, lost count of how many operations I planned, how many people I sent into danger. And for what? So defense contractors like your employer could profit off endless war? So politicians could pretend they were keeping us safe while soldiers died? You sound bitter. I am bitter. I'm bitter and tired and done. So yes, Colonel, I surrender. Take me in. Let your men collect their bounty. At least my death will mean something to someone. Vance was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something Sarah didn't expect. He lowered his weapon completely. No. Sarah blinked. What? I said no. I'm not taking you in. I'm not letting my men kill you. And I'm not going to help my employer cover up war crimes by silencing the only witness. He turned and shouted to his contractors. Stand down! All units stand down and withdraw to vehicles. Confusion rippled through the contractors. One of them, the young one with dead eyes, Bennett, stepped forward. Sir, we can't just... I gave you an order, Lieutenant. Stand down. But the bounty is blood money paid by a coward who's willing to kill a decorated general to save his own ass. I won't be part of that. I won't make my men part of that. Vance's voice rose, carrying command authority that made every contractor freeze. We're soldiers, not assassins. We fight for causes, not paychecks. Now withdraw before I start making you. Bennett's jaw clenched. You're making a mistake, Colonel. Probably. Won't be my first. Won't be my last. Vance looked at Sarah. You've got 60 seconds to get clear before my employer realizes I've gone soft and sends someone else. Use them wisely. Sarah stared at him, stunned. Why are you doing this? Because 20 years ago, I was you. I was the soldier who followed every order, who believed in the mission, who told myself I was doing the right thing. Then I watched my entire team die in Fallujah because some Pentagon desk jockey made a bad call. And I realized the system was broken. The war was broken. I was broken. He paused. I became a contractor because I couldn't serve that system anymore. But I never stopped being a soldier. And soldiers don't kill other soldiers for money. He stepped back, gesturing toward the exit. Go, General. Disappear. Stay dead. Live the life you've earned. Sarah took a step toward the exit, then stopped. I can't, Vance frowned. What? I can't run anymore. I can't hide. I tried that for 10 months and it didn't work. I'm not who I was pretending to be. I'm a soldier, a protector, the ghost, and running from that only made me miserable. Then what are you going to do? Sarah turned to face him fully. I'm going to make this right, all of it. Your employer, the one who hired you to kill Phoenix, I'm going to expose him, publicly, completely. I'm going to make sure his war crimes are front-page news. And I'm going to testify alongside Phoenix to make sure he never hurts another soldier. That's suicide. He has resources, connections. So do I, or I did, before I faked my death. Sarah pulled out her phone. I still have contacts at the Pentagon, at JSOC, people who owe me favors, people who'll listen if I tell them a defense contractor is trying to silence a witness with a private army. She started dialing. Vance moved to stop her. General, think about this. I have thought about it. For 10 months, I thought about running, about hiding, about becoming someone else. And it was the worst 10 months of my life. Sarah's voice cracked. I'm done running, Colonel. I'm done being ashamed of who I am. I'm a soldier. I save lives. I protect people. That's what I do. That's who I am. And I'm not going to let some coward with money take that away from me. The call connected. A voice answered, professional and clipped. JSOC Command. How may I? This is Major General Sarah Morrison. Authorization code Valkyrie 79er Echo. I need to speak to General Patterson immediately. Silence. Then, Ma'am, General Morrison is listed as KIA. Who is this really? It's really me, and I need Patterson now. Tell him the ghost is calling. He'll understand. More silence. Then a different voice, older, familiar. Sarah? Is that really you? Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. General Patterson had been her mentor, her commanding officer, the man who'd signed off on her memorial service 10 months ago. It's me, sir. I'm alive. Where the hell have you been? We buried you. I gave the eulogy. I know, I'm sorry, but I needed to disappear. I couldn't. Her voice broke. I couldn't do it anymore, sir. After Syria, after losing 16 operators, I just couldn't. Patterson's voice softened. Sarah, those deaths weren't your fault. The intel was bad. The mission parameters changed. You did everything you could. It wasn't enough. It never is. That's the burden of command. You know that. A pause. Where are you now? Mercy General Hospital, and I need help. There's a defense contractor, CEO named. She looked at Vance. Marcus Klein. Vance said quietly. Klein Defense Systems. Sarah repeated the name into the phone. Marcus Klein. He's been running illegal arms deals. A Navy SEAL witnessed it, got shot during extraction. Klein sent contractors to kill the SEAL before he could testify. They attacked the hospital. Civilian hospital, sir. Full assault. She could hear Patterson typing. How many casualties? None. I managed to evacuate everyone, but Klein has 60 contractors on site. I need federal support, FBI, ATF, someone with jurisdiction to arrest these people before this gets worse. You held off 60 contractors? By yourself? I had help. 4 SEALs, some hospital staff. We made it work. Patterson was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed, actually laughed. Of course you did. You're the ghost. You've pulled off impossible operations before. Why should tonight be different? Sir, I'm serious. I need... Support is already en route. I'm looking at satellite imagery now. FBI hostage rescue team is 15 minutes out. ATF is 20. Local SWAT is staging nearby. Sarah, you just started a shitstorm that's going to reach all the way to Congress. Good. Klein deserves it. Agreed, but there's going to be questions about where you've been, why you faked your death, what you've been doing for 10 months. Sarah looked around the destroyed lobby, at the water still dripping from broken sprinklers, at the bloodstains from contractors she'd fought, at Vance standing nearby, listening. I've been hiding, sir, pretending to be someone I'm not, trying to forget what I was. But tonight taught me something I can't forget. I can't stop being a soldier. It's not what I do, it's who I am. And maybe that's okay. So you're coming back? The question hung in the air. Coming back meant returning to the military, to command, to making life and death decisions, to potentially sending more people into danger, losing more operators, carrying more ghosts. But it also meant using her skills to save lives, to protect people, to make a difference. I don't know yet, sir, but I'm done hiding. That's a start. Hold your position. Support is inbound. And Sarah? Yes, sir. It's good to have you back. The call ended. Sarah lowered the phone and looked at Vance. You heard that. FBI is coming. You've got maybe 15 minutes to get your people clear. After that, anyone still here gets arrested. Vance nodded slowly. What about you? I'll stay, answer their questions, face whatever consequences come from faking my death. You're braver than I am, General. No, I'm just tired of running. Vance keyed his radio. All units withdraw to vehicles. We're pulling out. This operation is terminated. Protests crackled over the radio. Bennett's voice was loudest. Sir, we can't just leave. The bounty is void. Anyone who wants to stay and fight the FBI over it is welcome to try. Everyone else, move out, now. The contractors began withdrawing. Sarah watched them go. These men who'd been trying to kill her minutes ago, now retreating because one man had chosen honor over money. Bennett was the last to leave. He stopped in front of Sarah, his young face twisted with anger. This isn't over. Klein won't stop. He'll send more people, better people. You just made yourself a target for the rest of your life. I've been a target for 20 years, kid. One more enemy doesn't scare me. It should. Bennett's voice dropped to a whisper. Because Klein doesn't just have contractors. He has politicians, judges, generals, people in positions you can't fight, and they're going to destroy you for this. Sarah met his gaze without flinching. Let them try. Bennett shook his head and walked away. Vance lingered a moment longer. For what it's worth, General, I hope you make it through this. The military needs more people like you. People who remember what honor means. Thank you, Colonel. And for what it's worth, I hope you find a better employer. One who deserves soldiers like you. Vance nodded and left. Sarah stood alone in the lobby, listening to the distant sound of engines as the contractors withdrew. She was exhausted. Her body ached. Her hands were shaking again, but this time she didn't try to hide it. She was done hiding. 15 minutes later, the FBI arrived. Hostage rescue team, heavily armed, moving with tactical precision. They swept the hospital, found no threats, and eventually found Sarah sitting on the floor of the lobby, leaning against the reception desk. The team leader approached cautiously. Ma'am, I'm Special Agent Torres. Are you injured? No, just tired. Can you tell me what happened here? Sarah looked up at him. That's going to take a while. We've got time. So Sarah told him about Phoenix, about the contractors, about the defense contractor CEO who'd ordered the hit, told him about the battle, the evacuations, the desperate fight to protect patients and staff. She didn't tell him about being the ghost. Not yet. That would come later, in official debriefings, when she had to explain how one nurse had held off 60 contractors. Torres listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Ma'am, you single-handedly prevented a massacre. You saved dozens of lives. You're a hero. Sarah shook her head. I'm not a hero. I'm just a soldier who did her job. With all due respect, ma'am, your job was being a nurse. What you did tonight was way beyond that. Sarah smiled slightly. Yeah, I guess it was. More agents arrived. Forensic teams, investigators, people taking statements. The hospital slowly transformed from a battlefield into a crime scene. Tom Chen found her 2 hours later, sitting in the same spot, watching the controlled chaos. Sarah, he sat down beside her, are you okay? I don't know. Ask me in a few days. The FBI said you saved everyone, every patient, every staff member, no casualties except the contractors you took down, and even they're all going to survive. Good. I didn't want to kill anyone. Had enough blood on my hands already. Tom was quiet for a moment. I talked to some of the agents. They said you're military, special operations, that you've been hiding here for months. 10 months, and yes. Why here? Why Mercy General? Sarah looked at him, at this man who'd been kind to her when everyone else treated her like garbage, who'd defended her to Dr. Stone, who'd trusted her tonight when she asked him to. Because I needed somewhere to hide, somewhere no one would look for a major general, somewhere I could be nobody. She paused. And because I thought maybe, if I saved enough lives one patient at a time, I could make up for the ones I lost. Did it work? No, but it was worth trying. Jessica appeared, looking exhausted but alive. She sat down on Sarah's other side. Dr. Stone is losing his mind. He can't comprehend that the incompetent nurse he mocked for 10 months is actually some kind of super soldier. It's kind of hilarious. Despite everything, Sarah laughed. I wish I could see his face. You will. He wants to talk to you. Actually, he wants to apologize and offer you your job back. He wants to offer me my job back? Well, technically he wants to offer you a promotion. Head of emergency medicine. Full salary, benefits, the works. Sarah stared at her. You're joking. Nope. He's terrified you're going to sue the hospital for harassment, and he's trying to get ahead of it. I'm not going to sue. Maybe you should, Jessica said quietly. What he did to you, what we all did, treating you like you were incompetent, making you feel worthless, that wasn't okay. Even if you were hiding on purpose, it doesn't excuse how we treated you. Sarah looked at both of them, Tom and Jessica, two people who'd seen her at her lowest and her highest, who'd fought beside her tonight, who were still here, even though they could have left. I don't blame you, either of you. I was playing a part. I wanted you to think I was incompetent. That's on me, not you. But we made it so easy, Tom said. We never questioned it, never looked deeper. We just accepted that you were bad at your job and moved on. That's human nature. People see what they expect to see. Maybe, but we should have seen more. Before Sarah could respond, her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. Hello? General Morrison. The voice was smooth, educated, familiar. Marcus Klein. I must say, I'm impressed. You've caused me quite a bit of trouble tonight. Sarah's blood ran cold. How did you get this number? I have resources you can't imagine. And I wanted to congratulate you personally. You won tonight. Phoenix is safe. Your hospital staff survived. My contractors have been arrested. You've exposed my operation to federal investigators. Truly remarkable work. If you think flattery is going to... I'm not trying to flatter you, General. I'm trying to warn you. You've made a powerful enemy. And unlike my contractors, I don't fight with guns. I fight with lawyers, with politicians, with money. And I'm going to destroy you. Not quickly, slowly, methodically. I'm going to take apart your life piece by piece until there's nothing left. Sarah's grip tightened on the phone. You can try. Oh, I will. But first, I wanted you to know something. Those 16 operators you lost in Syria, the ones you've been carrying around like ghosts for 10 months, that was my fault. Sarah's world stopped. What? The intel you were given, the location, the timeline, the enemy force estimates, all came from my company. And I deliberately fed your team bad information. I needed that mission to fail, needed the weapons cache to be destroyed so I could sell replacements at triple the price. Those 16 soldiers, they died so I could make an extra $50 million. Sarah couldn't breathe, couldn't think. 10 months of guilt, of shame, of believing she'd failed her team, and it had all been a lie, a setup, a calculated murder for profit. You killed them. Her voice was barely a whisper. You killed my people for money. I killed them for business. There's a difference. And now, General Morrison, you understand what you're up against. I've killed soldiers before. I'll kill them again. And if you try to stop me, I'll kill you too. Not with bullets, with something much more painful, the truth. The truth about all the operations you've run, all the questionable decisions you've made, all the gray areas you've operated in. By the time I'm done, you won't be the ghost. You'll be the war criminal. The line went dead. Sarah sat frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear. Tom and Jessica were staring at her, concerned. Sarah? What's wrong? Who was that? Sarah lowered the phone slowly. Her hands were shaking violently now. Not from exhaustion, from rage. Pure, white, hot rage. That was Marcus Klein, and he just made the biggest mistake of his life. She stood up, her body moving on autopilot. Tom and Jessica scrambled to their feet. Sarah, what are you going to do? Sarah looked at them. Her gray-blue eyes were ice cold. The trembling nurse was completely gone. Only the soldier remained. I'm going to do what I should have done 10 months ago. I'm going to stop running. I'm going to stop hiding. And I'm going to make sure that every single person responsible for killing my team pays for what they did. How? Sarah pulled out her phone and dialed a number she'd sworn she'd never call again. It rang once, twice. Then a familiar voice answered. General Morrison, I was wondering when you'd call. Director Hawkins, I need to come in. I need to testify. And I need access to every classified file on Klein Defense Systems going back 20 years. That's going to require full reinstatement. You'd have to come back officially, accept whatever consequences come from faking your death. I know. Are you sure about this? Once you're back, there's no more hiding, no more running. You'll be in the spotlight. Every decision you've ever made will be scrutinized. Every operation questioned. It's going to be hell. Sarah looked at the destroyed hospital around her, at Tom and Jessica watching her with worried faces, at the evidence of the battles she'd fought to protect people she barely knew. I've been in hell for 10 months, Director. At least this way I'm fighting back. All right, report to the Pentagon tomorrow at 0800. We'll begin debriefing and reinstatement procedures. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet, General. You're about to go to war with one of the most powerful men in the defense industry. This is going to get ugly. I know, but this time I'm not fighting alone. She hung up and looked at Tom and Jessica. I have to go. I have to face what I've been running from. Make things right. Tom nodded. We understand, but Sarah, before you go, thank you for everything, for saving our lives, for protecting the hospital, for showing us what real courage looks like. Jessica hugged her suddenly, fiercely. Come back and visit sometime, okay? When all this is over, we miss you already. Sarah hugged her back, feeling something break open in her chest, something that had been locked away for 10 months. She'd spent so long being alone, being invisible, being nobody. But tonight, these people had seen her, really seen her, and they'd stayed. I will, I promise. She walked out of the hospital into the pre-dawn light. Federal agents were everywhere, processing the scene, taking statements. News vans were setting up in the parking lot. By noon, the story would be everywhere. The nurse who fought off 60 contractors, the hospital siege, the defense contractor conspiracy. And at the center of it all would be Sarah Morrison, the ghost, the soldier who'd tried to die and failed. She took a deep breath of cold morning air and felt something she hadn't felt in 10 months. Hope. Not because the fight was over, it had just begun, but because for the first time since Syria, she wasn't running from who she was. She was running toward it. And God help anyone who stood in her way. The Pentagon at dawn looked exactly as Sarah remembered, imposing, eternal, indifferent to the lives it consumed. She'd walked these corridors for years, made decisions that sent people into war zones, and walked out every night telling herself it mattered. Now she was walking back in after being dead for 10 months. The security checkpoint guard did a double take when she presented her ID. "Ma'am, this ID shows you as deceased." "I got better," Sarah said flatly. "Director Hawkins is expecting me." The guard made a phone call, then another, then finally waved her through with a look that said he'd be talking about this for weeks. Sarah took the elevator to the 4th floor. Her hands were steady now. No trembling, no pretending, just the soldier she'd always been, walking toward a reckoning she'd been avoiding for too long. Director Hawkins met her at his office door. He was in his 60s, with steel gray hair and the kind of face that had made hard decisions for decades without flinching. "General Morrison, you look like hell." "I've had a long night, sir." "I saw the news. Hospital siege, 60 contractors, one nurse holding them off. Except the nurse wasn't really a nurse, was she?" He gestured to a chair. "Sit. We have a lot to discuss." Sarah sat. Hawkins settled behind his desk, studying her with the intensity of someone who'd spent his career reading people. "Before we begin the official debriefing, I need to know, are you back? Really back? Or is this just temporary until you can disappear again?" "I'm back, sir, for good." "Why? What changed?" Sarah thought about the question. About 10 months of hiding, of pretending, of trying to be someone she wasn't. About last night, when she'd finally stopped running and started fighting. "I learned something, sir. You can change your name, change your job, change your entire life, but you can't change who you are at your core. I'm a soldier. I protect people. That's not what I do, it's who I am. And pretending otherwise only made me miserable." Hawkins nodded slowly. "Fair enough, but coming back has consequences. You faked your death, Morrison. There was a memorial service. Your teammates grieved. The military paid death benefits to your estate. That's fraud. Dereliction of duty. Hell, some people are going to call it treason. I know. You could face court-martial, dishonorable discharge, prison. I know that too. And you're willing to risk it to testify against Marcus Klein?" Sarah leaned forward. "Sir, Klein called me last night. He admitted he fed my team bad intel in Syria, deliberately got 16 operators killed so he could sell replacement weapons at triple the price. Those deaths, the ones I've been carrying around for 10 months, the ones that drove me to fake my death, they weren't my fault. They were his." Hawkins's expression darkened. "Do you have proof? Recording?" "No, but Phoenix has proof of Klein's current crimes. Arms dealing, war profiteering, witness tampering. If we can get him on those charges, we can dig deeper, find evidence linking him to Syria. That's going to take time, resources, political capital. Klein has friends in Congress, in the defense industry, everywhere that matters. Then we build a case he can't escape. We use Phoenix's testimony, the contractors who attacked the hospital, every piece of evidence we can find. We make it impossible for his friends to protect him." Hawkins was quiet for a long moment. Then he opened a file on his desk. "Phoenix is already talking. FBI has him in protective custody. He's given statements about what he witnessed. Illegal arms sales to sanctioned countries, falsified shipping manifests, bribes to military procurement officers. It's damning, but it's also circumstantial. Good lawyers could poke holes in it. Then we find better evidence. That's where you come in." Hawkins slid the file across the desk. "This is everything we have on Klein Defense Systems. Contracts, financial records, personnel files. Most of it's classified. You'll need full clearance to access it, which means full reinstatement. I understand. It also means accepting responsibility for faking your death. The JAG office wants to prosecute. I've convinced them to hold off until after you testify against Klein, but eventually you'll face charges. Sarah took the file. What kind of sentence are we talking about? Best case? Dishonorable discharge, forfeiture of pension, maybe a year in military prison. Worst case? 5 years, federal facility, permanent record. And if I refuse, if I walk away now, then we lose our best witness against Klein. Phoenix's testimony alone won't be enough. We need someone with command experience, someone who understands how these operations work, someone who can explain to a jury how Klein's actions got soldiers killed. Hawkins paused. We need you, Morrison, but I won't force you to sacrifice yourself. You've given enough. Sarah opened the file. Page after page of contracts, payments, shipments, 20 years of Klein's operations, all meticulously documented but carefully legal on the surface. She thought about Syria, about 16 operators who trusted her, who'd followed her orders, who died because someone prioritized profit over their lives. I'll do it. Whatever consequences come, I'll face them. But Klein goes down. Hawkins smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. Welcome back, General. Now let's destroy this bastard. The next 72 hours were a blur of debriefings, testimony, and investigation. Sarah worked with FBI agents, military prosecutors, financial analysts, building a case that would stand up in court. Phoenix was moved to the Pentagon for his safety. Sarah met him on the second day in a secure conference room guarded by MPs. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe 30, with a kind of face that had seen combat but hadn't been hardened by it yet. His arm was in a sling from the gunshot wound, but he was alive and alert. General Morrison. He stood when she entered, wincing slightly. Ma'am, I wanted to thank you. Breaker told me what you did, how you saved my life. Twice. Sit down before you tear your stitches. Sarah took a chair across from him. How are you feeling? Like I got shot and then helicoptered out of a war zone that was actually a civilian hospital. He managed a weak smile. So, pretty normal for a SEAL, actually. Despite everything, Sarah laughed. Fair enough. I read your statement. What you witnessed, the arms deals, the corruption, it's solid testimony. But Klein's lawyers are going to come at you hard, question your credibility, your memory, your motives. Are you ready for that? Phoenix's smile faded. Ma'am, with respect, I've been through SEAL training. I've survived combat in 3 countries. I've been shot, nearly died, and had 60 contractors try to finish the job. I think I can handle some lawyers. This is different. Combat is clean. There's an enemy, a mission, an objective. Legal battles are messy. They'll drag your name through the mud, dig into your personal life, make you look like a liar or a fool, or both. And it could take years. Then it takes years. Ma'am, I watched Klein sell weapons to people who killed my teammates. American weapons, sold illegally, used against American soldiers. If testifying puts him in prison, I'll testify. If it takes years, I'll wait. If it costs me my career, so be it. Sarah studied him. She saw herself at 30, idealistic, determined, believing the system would work if she just fought hard enough. You remind me of someone I used to know, she said quietly. Who? Me. Before I learned that sometimes fighting the system breaks you faster than combat ever could. Phoenix leaned forward. Ma'am, can I ask you something? Why'd you fake your death? Everyone says you were the best. Best tactical mind, best combat surgeon, best commander. Why walk away? Sarah was silent for a long moment. Then, because I sent 16 people to their deaths based on bad intel. And I couldn't live with that. Couldn't command anyone else. Couldn't risk losing more people. Couldn't keep making life and death decisions when I'd made such a catastrophic mistake. But it wasn't your fault. Klein fed you bad intel. I know that now. But for 10 months, I thought it was my fault. Thought I'd failed them. And that guilt ate me alive until I couldn't be a soldier anymore. And now? Sarah looked at him. Now I know the truth. Now I have someone to blame besides myself. And I'm going to make damn sure he pays for what he did. We, Phoenix said firmly, we're going to make sure he pays. You're not alone in this, ma'am. The simple statement hit Sarah harder than she'd expected. She'd spent 10 months being alone, hiding, convinced she didn't deserve help or support or friendship. But she wasn't alone anymore. Thank you, she said quietly. That means more than you know. On the third day, Sarah was called to testify before a closed congressional hearing. Marcus Klein would be there, along with his lawyers, several senators, and enough cameras to make this a national news event. Sarah wore her dress uniform for the first time in 10 months. The weight of it felt strange, familiar and foreign all at once. Her rank insignia gleamed on her shoulders. Her ribbons told the story of 20 years of service: Silver Star, Purple Heart, Bronze Star with Valor, and a dozen others. She looked in the mirror and barely recognized herself. The trembling nurse was gone. The ghost had returned. Breaker met her outside the hearing room. Ma'am, wanted to wish you luck before you go in. Thank you, Commander. How's your team? Good. Back on active duty. Phoenix is recovering well, thanks to you. And we've been following the case. Everyone's rooting for you to take Klein down. No pressure then. Breaker smiled. You faced worse odds, ma'am. 60 contractors, remember? This is just one corrupt CEO and some lawyers. The contractors were easier. At least they were honest about wanting to kill me. Fair point. Breaker's expression turned serious. Ma'am, whatever happens in there, you should know. What you did at that hospital, it reminded a lot of us why we serve. Not for politics or paychecks, but to protect people who can't protect themselves. You're a hero, whether you believe it or not. Sarah felt her throat tighten. I'm not a hero. I'm just a soldier who did her job. Same thing, ma'am. The hearing room was packed. Senators sat at a raised panel. Marcus Klein sat at the defendant's table, surrounded by lawyers in expensive suits. Cameras lined the back wall. Every seat was filled. Sarah walked to the witness table alone, took her seat, raised her right hand, and swore to tell the truth. Senator Mitchell, chairman of the Armed Services Committee, spoke first. General Morrison, thank you for appearing today. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge the unusual circumstances of your testimony. You were declared KIA 10 months ago. You attended your own memorial service in absentia. You've been living under an assumed identity. Can you explain why? Sarah looked directly at him. Senator, I suffered severe PTSD after a mission in Syria went catastrophically wrong. 16 operators died. I blame myself. I couldn't continue serving, but I also couldn't face the shame of admitting I'd broken. So I faked my death and disappeared. That's desertion, General. Dereliction of duty. Yes, sir, it is. And I'm prepared to face the consequences. But first, I need to tell you about the man who's actually responsible for those 16 deaths. The man sitting across from me who deliberately fed my team false intelligence so he could profit from their deaths. Klein's lead lawyer shot to his feet. Objection! These accusations are baseless, inflammatory. This isn't a courtroom, counselor, Mitchell said coldly. Sit down. General Morrison, continue. Sarah pulled out documents from the file Hawkins had given her. Marcus Klein owns Klein Defense Systems. His company has held contracts with the Department of Defense for 20 years. During that time, he's made billions selling weapons, equipment, and intelligence services. But he's also been running illegal operations on the side, selling to sanctioned countries, falsifying shipping records, bribing procurement officers. These are serious allegations. Another senator spoke up. Do you have proof? Yes, ma'am. Sarah nodded to an aide who distributed copies of financial records. These documents show wire transfers from Klein Defense Systems to shell corporations in countries under arms embargo. These emails show Klein personally authorizing sales to terrorist organizations. And this, she held up a classified report, is intelligence from the Syria operation that got my team killed. It came from Klein Defense Systems, and it was deliberately falsified. The room erupted, senators talking over each other, Klein's lawyers shouting objections, cameras flashing. Mitchell gavelled for order. General Morrison, you're accusing a major defense contractor of treason, of getting American soldiers killed for profit. That's an extraordinary claim. I have extraordinary evidence, sir. Phone records, financial transactions, witness testimony from Phoenix, the Navy SEAL who survived Klein's attempt to silence him. And I have this, she pulled out her phone, a voicemail Klein left me 3 days ago, admitting he fed my team bad intel, admitting he got 16 operators killed for a $50 million payday. She played the recording. Klein's voice filled the room, smooth and arrogant, confessing to murder for profit. The silence that followed was deafening. Klein's face had gone white. His lawyers were frantically whispering to him. The senators looked shocked. Mitchell spoke first. Mr. Klein, do you have a response to these allegations? Klein stood slowly. He was composed, but Sarah could see the cracks in his facade, the fear underneath the confidence. Senator, this recording is taken out of context. General Morrison has a vendetta against me because you tried to have a Navy SEAL killed in a civilian hospital to cover up your crimes? Sarah's voice was ice cold. Because you got my entire team killed for money? Because you've spent 20 years profiting off war while soldiers die? You have no proof. I have all the proof I need, and so does the FBI, the DOJ, and military intelligence. You're done, Klein. This hearing is just the beginning. There will be criminal charges, civil suits, congressional investigations. By the time we're finished, you'll lose everything: your company, your fortune, your freedom. Klein's mask slipped completely. Rage contorted his face. You self-righteous bitch. You think you're better than me? You've killed people too. Made decisions that got soldiers killed. You're no different. You're right, Sarah cut him off. I have made decisions that got people killed, and I've carried that guilt every single day. I've lost sleep, lost my career, lost myself trying to live with it. But the difference between us? I was trying to save lives. You were trying to make money. I sacrificed everything for my country. You sacrificed our soldiers for your bank account. So no, Mr. Klein, we are nothing alike. The hearing room was dead silent. Mitchell cleared his throat. Mr. Klein, I'm suspending this hearing. Federal marshals will take you into custody pending formal charges. General Morrison, thank you for your testimony. The committee will take all of this under advisement. Sarah watched as marshals led Klein away in handcuffs. He didn't look at her, didn't say a word, just walked out, his empire crumbling around him. It should have felt satisfying, victorious. Instead, Sarah just felt tired. Outside the hearing room, reporters swarmed her, questions coming from every direction. General Morrison, how does it feel to bring down Marcus Klein? Will you face charges for desertion? Are you returning to active duty? Sarah ignored them all, pushed through the crowd until she reached a quiet corridor. Tom Chen was waiting there. So was Jessica, and Breaker, and Phoenix, against doctor's orders. You came, Sarah said, surprised. Of course we came, Jessica said. You're our friend. Where else would we be? Tom handed her a cup of coffee. Figured you could use this. You've had a hell of a week. Sarah took it gratefully. Thank you, all of you, for being here, for believing in me. Ma'am, you saved our lives, Phoenix said. This is the least we could do. They stood together in comfortable silence. 5 people who'd met under impossible circumstances, who'd fought together, who'd survived. Director Hawkins appeared at the end of the corridor. General Morrison, a word? Sarah excused herself and walked over. The JAG office has reviewed your case, Hawkins said without preamble. Given your testimony against Klein, given your 20 years of exemplary service, they're offering a deal. Plead guilty to 1 count of dereliction of duty, accept a reprimand, forfeit 6 months of back pay. In exchange, no prison time, no dishonorable discharge. You keep your rank, your pension, your service record. Sarah stared at him. That's it? That's the penalty for faking my death? The Pentagon wants this to go away quietly. You're a hero again. Took down a corrupt defense contractor, saved a hospital, protected a witness. They don't want the negative press of court-martialing you. So yes, that's it. In my career, can I return to active duty? Hawkins smiled slightly. That depends. What do you want to do? Sarah thought about it. Thought about the last 10 months of hiding, about last week's battle at the hospital, about testifying against Klein, about who she really was, underneath all the pretending. I want to teach, she said finally. I want to train the next generation of combat medics and tactical operators. Teach them what I've learned. Make sure they're better prepared than I was. Make sure they come home. That can be arranged. Fort Bragg is opening a new Special Operations medical training facility. They need a commander, someone with combat experience, tactical expertise, and the ability to inspire young soldiers. That sounds perfect. There's one condition, Hawkins said. You have to stop running, stop hiding. Be who you really are. Major General Sarah Morrison, the ghost, the soldier who saved more lives than most people will ever know. Can you do that? Sarah looked back at her friends waiting in the corridor, at Tom and Jessica, who'd seen her at her weakest and stayed, at Breaker and Phoenix, who'd fought beside her without hesitation. She thought about the 16 operators she'd lost in Syria, about the guilt she'd carried, about Klein's confession that it hadn't been her fault. And she realized something. She'd been punishing herself for 10 months for a mistake she didn't make, hiding from a failure that wasn't hers, running from ghosts that belonged to someone else. It was time to stop. Yes, sir, Sarah said. I can do that. 3 months later, Sarah stood in front of her first class at Fort Bragg. 30 young soldiers, fresh out of basic training, eager and terrified in equal measure. She wore her uniform with pride now. Her rank insignia gleamed. Her ribbons told her story. The thin scar above her left eyebrow was visible. She'd stopped hiding it. My name is Major General Sarah Morrison, she said. Call sign, Ghost. I've spent 20 years in special operations. I've planned missions in 17 countries. I've saved hundreds of lives and lost people I cared about. I've made mistakes that haunted me and decisions I'd make again. And I'm here to teach you how to do the same. How to save lives under impossible conditions. How to lead when everything goes wrong. How to come home when the odds say you shouldn't. She paused, looking at each of them. Some of you will go on to combat. Some of you will face situations where people's lives depend on your training, your skill, your ability to stay calm when everything is chaos. And I'm going to make sure you're ready. Because every soldier who comes home is a victory. Every life saved is a mission accomplished. That's what we do. That's who we are. One young soldier raised his hand. Ma'am, is it true you fought off 60 contractors by yourself? Sarah smiled. Not by myself. I had help. I always had help. I just had to stop being too proud to accept it. Remember that. You're not alone out there. Your team, your training, your mission, they're all designed to bring you home. Use them. After class, Sarah walked across the base toward her office. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the training grounds. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, then recognized the area code. Mercy General Hospital. Hello? Sarah, it's Tom. Just wanted to check in, see how you're doing. Sarah smiled. I'm good, Tom. Really good. Teaching is harder than I expected, but it's rewarding. How's the hospital? Recovering. We got a new head of ER, not as good as you would have been, but competent. Dr. Stone actually learned some humility. Jessica says hi, by the way. She wants to know when you're visiting. Tell her soon. I have leave coming up next month. We'll hold you to that. Oh, and Sarah, the nursing staff wanted me to tell you something. We miss you, the real you, not the act you are putting on, but the person who saved our lives. Thank you for letting us see who you really are. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you for seeing me, Tom, for all of it. After they hung up, Sarah stood alone on the training grounds, watching the sunset. She thought about the last year, about Syria and the 16 ghosts she'd carried, about faking her death and hiding for 10 months, about the hospital siege and Marcus Klein's arrest and the choice to come back, about learning that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop running and face who you really are. She'd been the ghost for 20 years, invisible, deadly, always in the shadows, but she was done hiding. She was Sarah Morrison, soldier, teacher, protector, friend, and she was finally, truly home. Not because she'd found a place to hide, but because she'd found the courage to stop hiding at all. The end of her running was the beginning of her life, and that was worth fighting for.